When you were reading about real estate investing, what did the books tell you to do when these situations arose?
It didn't.
Oh, it's not in there?
It wasn't in the books that I was reading.
Yeah, there's really...
Maybe we should write that book.
Yeah, this is just a testimony to like the unforeseen circumstances in investing and in real estate. You know, it's not to deter anybody from taking a shot or doing deal one, but like this is just some good reality. I mean, what a wild story to have on Unit 1. How and why did you keep going? Welcome to Courageous Stewards, the podcast where legacy meets leadership.
We believe stewardship isn't just about managing resources. It's about multiplying impact, honoring purpose, and building with eternity in mind. Each week, we dive into business-focused discussions on real estate investing on a foundation of faith and family.
We have a desire to inspire listeners with a heart to reclaim their time, talents, and treasures for something greater. Whether you're growing your portfolio, leading a business, or a family, we need to become the best version of ourselves.
This is your space to gain wisdom, walk in courage, and steward what matters most.
Let's build what lasts. Let's lead with love.
Let's become courageous stewards.
All right, so welcome back. We're here at episode 3. We're still in that series of My First Deal, and today we're going to dive into Jake's story here. And he left us with a couple cliffhangers last time, evidently about this becoming a drug house while he owned it and had a dual eviction with the same family. So I'm excited to hear more about this first deal here and what he went through. We both started this without the experience of landlording or being in long-term rentals. And so that first deal is really one to share about. So we're just going to jump right into it. Jake, why don't you start us off with sharing some about this first deal, and we'll just take off with it.
My first deal really was more because I had created an LLC that I had then done nothing with, and it was just sitting there empty and had nothing in it. And I had gotten sick. I had to have appendix surgery, which I believe I touched on in our first episode. You guys will have to go back and listen to that one to kind of hear our upbringing and our stories and everything. That was kind of a reality check for me at that time because it was a fairly significant surgery. And so it was almost like a wow, like I need to do something more than I'm doing right now. And so it was kind of a gut punch. And I just started looking. I'm like, I know real estate fairly well from the flipping perspective, from past experience. I had my realty license in Arizona, and then we had done some flips. I bought a property right out of high school to start and did a full renovation on that. So I did have a bit of a background in the real estate space, but I had never been a landlord and didn't even really know what that looked like. You just hear the horror stories about, I don't want to get called at 2 o'clock in the morning with a toilet issue and a water issue or something significant. And I thought, it can't really be that bad. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go find a property. I'm going to put it in the LLC and that'll get me started. It was almost that naivety of, I don't know what I don't know. I'm just going to go. Yep. And I've kind of always been that person. I do try to pause and collect my thoughts and make sure that I'm not being a complete moron in regards to what it is that I'm trying to pursue. But then I'm just willing to go when other people may not be able to. And I think that that's been a testament to my success is the other folks around me that are not willing to do something. If I feel like it's going to work out and have a sense of peace about it, I'll go. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
And so I started looking around. I found this little old lady on Marketplace who was trying to sell some of her rental properties. She had owned them for probably 50 years, something like that.
Wow.
She was 94, I think, at the time, and had owned them right up until she just could not physically do it anymore. And she tried to sell me several properties, one of which I think you actually own now, which is interesting conversation that maybe we can have on a future episode. But she had this other house. I didn't know much about it other than I could tell it wasn't a great house, but she didn't want very much for it. We ended up paying $35,500. I think we started at $40,000 and we negotiated back. Now, she wasn't even on Marketplace at the time. She had her grandson list the property and negotiate for her on her behalf. And so I was communicating with somebody that knew nothing about real estate for a grandmother who just wanted out at that point.
Nice.
Pretty
That's a good recipe.
Pretty interesting. I did not work with a realtor. I mean, it was kind of good because it was an off-market property. I got a decent deal on it, not really knowing that the property was in rougher shape.
Yeah.
I did have an inspection done. The inspector told me to run. I did not listen. But you could just tell it was not a great house, but I wasn't paying a ton of money for it.
Right.
And I knew that from the start. I was an engineer at the time as well. So $35,000 is a lot of money.
Sure.
But when you're talking about a house, it's not that much money.
Did you have to mortgage that one, or was that just a cash deal?
No, we did. We mortgaged that one.
Okay.
And we actually, I won't go into the second deal, but basically we ended up finding another single family house at the same time. And we closed both of those houses on the same day in the same mortgage at the same time.
Okay, right
So
on.
we had one mortgage for two properties, which we can talk details on that as well for future episodes. I had the inspection done. I walked through the property myself. It leaned so bad. The foundation was not great. The house was over 100 years old. It had not been well maintained because it had been a rental property for the majority of its life. So it was not in the best of shape, but it already had tenants in it. They were already paying rent. I want to say their rent was like $475 a month at that time. And so 1% rule, there you are again. I'm paying $35,000 for it, basically. Their rent is $475. It meets that 1% rule. Okay, we're good. Let's go. At least at the time, that was my thought process. It didn't really go much deeper than that. So I met with the elderly lady. We signed the purchase agreement. We rocked that fast. I, again, am kind of like you in that regard where I want to move quickly.
Yeah, I don't go slow.
I will make it. I'll make it happen. So we were ready to roll. I pushed the bank. We got a commercial loan for that, which I probably could have gone residential. Now looking back on it, I probably should have, but you don't know what you don't know. So we just rolled with it. I went and talked to a close friend of mine that I went to school with that is now a commercial banker, and we played football together. Great dude. And he's been a huge help in the future from that point forward in helping us get this portfolio built to what it is now.
Right on.
So he helped me out with the first deal, and we were off to the races. When we took the property over, the family that was living in there had been living in there for a while. They weren't clean. They weren't the best of tenants. They paid their rent, but they never paid it on time. But like I said before, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I just started to implement certain policies. From the start, I always told tenants that I was the property manager for the company that owned the property, which is true, 100%. But it just creates a barrier between, you being their friend and you being a employee for the company.
100%. And tenants, I think once they know you're the owner, it changes the dynamic. They'll ask more, they'll push more. They'll, instead of just being like, I work for the business, I'm not responsible for making decisions or allowing flexibility in those questions, though.
Yeah, these are the policies put in place by the company.
Yeah.
They're the same for everybody. So I have to treat you the same way that I treat everybody else.
No special treatment. It's a business. So.
I would say that that's something that I did right. There was a lot that I didn't do right probably from the start, but that's one that I stand behind and I would encourage other people to do. You don't have to lie to your tenant, but at the same time, you can be an employee of the company.
Sure.
And you probably should be, to negate a lot of future problems by them recognizing you as the owner per se.
So how long were those first tenants that were in there when you acquired it in there?
They were in there for probably the first 2 years. In those 2 years, oh boy, it was crazy. All the things that we had to deal with, which I can go into unless you want to kind of take it a different direction.
No, I think we're probably all pretty excited to hear about a drug house and a dual eviction on the same family. This is going to be a fun one.
Okay, well, let's go. So it didn't start out as a drug house. It was a mother and her daughter. Her daughter was handicapped, but the lease was actually in her daughter's name. I don't even remember what the exact circumstances were that led us to the point where her mentally handicapped daughter had the lease in her name. I think it was because she had Social Security or something coming from the government every month, and that's how they paid their rent. Something like that. I can't remember exactly. But regardless, so it was the two of them, and then the handicapped daughter had a daughter that we didn't know about. She moved that daughter in later on after we had taken over the property. That daughter was still in school. So we said, okay, young daughter, nothing really that we can do about that. So that's fine. She can live there as well. I think they took that as we can move everybody in our family into this house and you won't question it. And so somehow conversation was had with the handicapped daughter's brother. Now, this brother was a problem, and we didn't know that he was even moving in at the time. It was just like he wasn't there one day, and then he and his girlfriend and their 2 dogs and all their drugs were there the next day.
Lesson here is you give them an inch, they take 5 miles.
100%. Absolutely. And that's exactly what happened. So this was a 2-story house. They basically took the second floor of this house and converted it into their living space and drug space. And so they turned the closets upstairs into grow houses. They had the lights, they had the plant beds all set up, and I mean, they had the whole thing all set up. We had no idea.
And now this was back when it was illegal.
This was still when marijuana
federally,
was
I think
illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The laws have changed since then, but yeah, that's interesting. So they had the grow rooms and all the lights and everything upstairs.
Everything. And we had no idea that it was happening, which is another thing that I would encourage new landlords to do. Create a practice that you have a policy of inspecting your units.
Yeah. Ours is every 6 months.
I would say even once a year would be okay. Yeah. I like the 6-month policy. Yeah. I think that's a great system to get behind.
Just a quick walkthrough.
Right.
It just adds a lot of awareness to the tenant and the landlord.
Yeah.
Like I do inspections. I will come through. I won't go through all your personal belongings, but just having an assessment of the property.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to catch that thing that seems odd, and you can go, what's going on here? And then at least that way you can drive your rules and stuff. And because once you can hold them on the lease and what the requirements are and let them know you're violating the lease, it's just good to have that awareness. I think sometimes we know they take advantage of a lack of involvement.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
You know?
Yeah. And the funny thing is I had that practice and that policy from the start that I planned on doing. The problem was I only inspected the first floor. I never went upstairs.
Oh, okay.
So when they showed up, I was introduced to the son as somebody who was visiting. They were just there for a short period of time and they were getting their own place. So in my mind, it was, okay, they're just there temporarily. Not really much I can do about that. We're just going to let them stay. At that time, they didn't have any dogs in the property either, which we had made it clear you can't have pets in this property. Now, we have since changed some of those rules depending on the property, the circumstances, and stuff like that. So fast forward a couple of months, I go back to collect rent. I don't think I had an online platform at that time for collecting rent, first few properties. Knock on the door and dogs start barking. And so I'm like, oh, great, now what?
This is just a snowball that just keeps getting bigger.
This whole time, they're growing, selling drugs out of the upstairs. I had no idea. They weren't the best folks, and I knew that, but I kind of overlooked it, I guess, a little bit. So I go in. There's a pit bull that was in a cage that was meaner than heck, growling at me, trying to get at me from inside the cage, and then another little dog. So I'm like, what is going on here? I got an explanation. Those are service animals. I'll provide you the paperwork, but I don't have it right now. We lost it in the move, which turned into, okay, now you're living here permanently? Because the last conversation we had, that wasn't the case. At that point, they're so dug in that if I want to get rid of them, I have to do an eviction to get them out of the property.
Yeah, there was going to be no easy way
It has to be court ruling. And so that's my understanding anyway. I'm not an attorney, but that's the approach that I thought we had to take.
Did you ever see that paperwork for those being service animals?
Yes, sort of. So the smaller dog, they did provide service papers
that makes
for
sense.
that animal.
Yeah.
But the pit bull, another explanation was given later on, a couple weeks later. I'm still working on getting that paperwork for that dog, and I'll get that for you as soon as we get it, which was a total lie. I see that now, hindsight being 2020.
Sure.
But at the time, I'm like, okay, you provided for the one dog. I'm just waiting on the other one. It's not the greatest circumstance, but I'll deal with it. A couple weeks after that, I get a call. That dog had gotten out of its cage or been let out without having a leash, It had gone across the road. This is an in-town property. It had attacked the neighbor and then attacked their little dog across the road, which had torn that little dog up pretty bad. They ended up having to have that little dog life flighted.
Holy moly.
To try to help with the bleeding and whatever it had done to that dog to try to save its life. That turned into a significant cost. And we went through a process of the neighbor wanting to sue the company for negligence, I guess, for us letting our tenant have that dog and that dog attacking their dog.
Yeah, right.
Which we didn't want to let that dog there to begin with.
Now, when you were reading about real estate investing, what did the books tell you to do when these situations arose?
It didn't.
Oh, that's not in there?
Wasn't in the books that I was reading.
Yeah, there's really...
Maybe we should write that book.
Yeah, this is just a testimony to like the unforeseen circumstances in investing and in real estate. You know, it's not to deter anybody from taking a shot or doing deal one, but like this is just some good reality. I mean, what a wild story to have on unit one.
Yeah.
Just wild stuff that you would never have anticipated going into it. And to have a dog life flighted and then they're coming after you for financial compensation for that situation.
Right.
Wow.
That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back on that deal. At that point, I was like, okay, enough is enough. You're not providing us with the information you need. You're not even supposed to be in the property. We're done. So I got an eviction set up, processed for the son and the son's girlfriend. They didn't leave. We took it all the way through the court system, and the bailiff had to go out and escort the son and his girlfriend or wife off of the property.
Now, those two weren't on the lease, right?
They were not on the lease.
So they weren't on the lease, and it still took an eviction process to get those two out of the house.
Right. And all the way up to the bailiff going and escorting them off the property. They rode their bicycles away from the property because they had no form of transportation outside of bikes. So, yeah, they walked away or biked away. And in Ohio, you then have to take all of their belongings and set them out at the curb so that they have an opportunity to collect them over the next couple of days. Then if they don't, you can have them taken to the dump and gotten rid of.
Right.
And so in the process of us going in to empty all of their belongings from upstairs, guess what? Drugs everywhere upstairs. So then we had to get the sheriff's department out there. They had to do their inspections and collect all the evidence and go through this whole process.
This is a crazy story, Jake. I mean, it's like, I think a question to be asked here is how and why did you keep going? Why would this story on unit one not be enough to go, this is insane, I'm done? How do you stay in it and persevere to the level at which you say, it's fine. We're going to keep going.
I think I would probably be lying to you if I said those thoughts didn't cross my mind.
I couldn't imagine.
I honestly think that it helped me a lot to have that second deal because that one was solid tenants that had been there since prior to us being there. They're still tenants with us to this day.
Very cool. So that was a much smoother unit in that deal that you bought where you got them both together.
Yes.
So you had one going really well, really peaceful. People are paying rent. It's good property, good unit. And then only the one was the pain and nightmare. So you had an opportunity to see the good in the portfolio and the opportunities to come. But man, you had a rough one off the rip. So.
Yeah. I think I have a resiliency that a lot of people probably wouldn't have in those cases. And I saw what could be. I had been broke and I knew that that was a reality that I could go back to.
Yeah.
So I was willing to commit to the point of,
for sure,
I'm never going to give up. And if that means I fail and I have to start over again, I'm gonna.
I love that. I've told that to my wife a few times. And because people at work, when I was about to leave my job, what are you going to do if this fails or doesn't work? I was like, I'll start over. I'll do it because I knew enough after getting into it, doing the first few deals ago. This will work. It'll take time, but this will work. I would start all over.
100%.
So I love that. Yeah, that's a great answer. Great response.
Yeah. So we did get the brother, or the son and his wife out of the unit eventually. And everything kind of slowed down, got quiet. And then maybe 6 or 8 months later, the original tenants stopped having their money source through a lot of problems in communication, basically just stopped paying the rent. And so we had to do an eviction on them as well. Now, their eviction was a lot less eventful, I guess. But they, again, took it all the way up to the court system. I tried to give them a warning that if they would just get out by a certain date, we wouldn't have to process the eviction.
And
they
that's
wouldn't
good.
have it on their record.
I love that.
I tried to help them out as much as I could.
Yeah, I think we both have that same heart. We want to work with the people first.
Right.
Let's have conversation. Let's come up with a plan that works for both of us so that we can walk away peacefully and have some resolve here, not just go to court. I think we both have that heart. So that's awesome that you, even after all that, sat down with them and gave them an out, gave them a conversation to have an opportunity to walk away with this and take care of it without the legal matters and stuff.
We want to try to work with tenants as much as possible,
Yep.
even past the point of them not being able to pay or unwilling to pay in some cases. And this was one of those cases. They were not able to pay, and we had a mortgage on the property, and we had to continue. We hoped that they would just work their way out, leave, move in with family members or whatever they needed to do. And they did peacefully, but not before a judge forced them to, which I still cannot to this day wrap my mind around why you would not avoid the eviction and just be moved out by the date that the landlord says you need to be.
Evictions are big. That's, I mean, when it comes down to a screening process, that's a go, no go for me. If you've got evictions on your record, I'm probably not renting.
All right.
You know, and I think that's a lot of landlords. So
Same thing. Yeah, I do the same. And we've gone through now 4 evictions in my experience. They're not the end of the world. That's another one of those things that they want to shy away from real estate because they're like, I don't want to deal with an eviction. It's really not that bad.
And I think that has to do too with market you're in, where you're located. Other states, other areas in the U.S. are a lot more difficult, where maybe they favor tenants more. I think where we're at, it's still a little bit leveraged on the landlord side, so we do get to stand on our leases more.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes in other states, they really don't play that, and it does take a lot longer. But I think we're in a good place where we're at here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that particular property, even after we got them out of there, we had to remodel it at that point because they had been living in it from the start, from us purchasing it. So we had to remodel it. We probably put $18,000 at that point into that property before we could rent it again. So we did that, moved some other folks in there. We rented it to 2 different sets of tenants after that, before we decided that, you know what, we've had enough of this property. I think we had it for 5 years at that point, give or take. So we just said, forget it. We're done with this one. We have enough other properties. Let's roll the profits from this into something else and buy something that we're a little more comfortable with, maybe a little bit better neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's the route we went. When the tenant moved out, the last tenant, we had to remodel it again. And so we put another $15,000 into a remodel that took quite a while because nothing in this house was straight. We had to re-drywall some rooms, and it would be 2 inches off from top to bottom.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of complications with regard to the remodel. But we got it remodeled. It looked nice. It was a solid home when we sold it. We bought it for $35,000, and we sold it for, I believe, $90,000 or $92,000.
Nice.
So ultimately, we collected rent for 4 or 5 years. We paid a few $1,000s in court costs and so forth for evictions. And then we did the remodel costs.
I still think you came out ahead.
I profited.
Yeah.
And not only did I profit, I learned more on that single home
I think that's where
as
the
a
value
landlord.
is. Yeah, I think that's where the value is made.
100%.
I love the lessons. I think the value is there.
And there's so much more to that story.
Yeah.
The day-to-day things that happened. I mean, the house had a basement that flooded several times. The main water line blew, and they called me to go over there and get that fixed. There were electrical issues that happened.
Yeah.
The roof leaked. I mean, there's just a ton of things. But ultimately, none of it ever really got me to a place where I was like, this is so much that I can't handle it.
Yeah.
It doesn't all happen to you at once.
Correct.
And so, you kind of take things as they come.
One thing at a time.
One thing at a time. And if you're able to just have that little bit of resilience every so often when something does arise and you just tackle that thing head on, get it behind you and move on, and then something else happens and you're able to tackle that, you can build a business that is wildly successful.
For sure.
Starting out with a property that is very complicated and frustrating.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to have an episode on just overcoming circumstances that surprise you. I mean, we got started and we had a fire in one of our units very early on in what we were doing, and it rocked us. I was like, I don't quite know what to do. And even what was funny is I reached out to my mentor in that moment, and I was like, bro, we had a fire. What's the next steps? He's like, I don't know. We've never had one. I was like, you have so many doors. You've been like guiding me along the way. Like I thought I would reach out to you. You'd be like, yeah, we've had 2. Here's what you do. Just this, this, and this. And he didn't. So we should have an episode on horror stories, man. And share some of that. But this has been an awesome story hearing about your first one. And a question is, looking back, would you buy it all over again? Would you go
100%.
through all that and do it again?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's absolutely nothing that I would change.
That's awesome.
From the start. Crazily enough, I mean, you could say, well, I would have bought a different property that didn't have so many problems,
Sure.
or whatever the case might be. And you could throw that argument out there, I suppose. But ultimately, that experience and the series of years where I had to deal with different problem after different problem are things now that I look at as a landlord and go, this is nothing.
Yep.
This is so simple. I know exactly what to do. I know I'm going to get a year or 2 down the road and look back and laugh at the circumstance that we're dealing with right now. And it is not the crisis that you think that it is.
So good. Yeah, so true. That's a great nugget for everybody. This was a pretty rough story, a pretty rough start. I know it could turn off a lot of people out there, but ultimately there are going to be struggles and complications in this space. But when you're playing the long game, it still works out. Just as long as you have that attitude. I think attitude's a big part of this career, is just having the right attitude and being consistent, persevering, and being willing to do it. What's your quote? You are always dropping this when we're at coffee and stuff in the morning, and it's...
I love quotes.
Talking, it's like you're going to figure it out.
Everything is figure-outable.
That's it. That's the one. Right?
Yeah. I want to put that on a shirt.
Everything is
because
figure-outable.
It's so true.
It is. It is.
Everything is figure-outable. Just pause, calm yourself down, step back for a second and process what's happening, and then just start putting the pieces together.
Yeah, I love that.
Everything is figure-outable, especially in this business.
Yeah.
People never start because they're scared of the little things that could potentially happen.
Yeah, they want to have everything figured out before they do the first deal, and there's no way to be in this space and have that as your reality.
No way. I would do it all over again. It has been an incredible ride. It's created 2 millionaires, multi-millionaires in this space, and all from just being willing to be resilient and see it through.
Yeah.
Commit.
Yeah.
When somebody else wouldn't. I'll commit. Let's go.
Let's
do it. So I wouldn't change anything about it. That's
right on.
That's awesome.
Well, this was awesome. I mean, for episode 3, I think next time we want to just share our heart for what courageous means, since, this platform is built on being a courageous steward. We're going to touch base on what it means to be courageous for us. And just looking back at this episode, that was a lot on the first deal for Jake and just how many struggles there were in it. But again, just like we said at the end of the last one, if you're thinking about it and you're taking your time and you're doing your research and you're taking the right steps and preparing, do deal 1, because deal 1 is going to be the one that propels you into deal 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10. And you'll always look back at deal 1, no matter how rough it was. And I think Jake has just set the bar there and go, man, I'm glad I bought deal 1. We just thank you guys for joining us again. We're excited about the next episode, so turn in next week for when we discuss what being courageous means to us.
Thanks for joining us today on Courageous Stewards, where legacy meets leadership and faith fuels the journey.
If this episode stirred something in you, share it with someone who's ready to step boldly into their calling. Subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected as we continue to explore what it means to lead with conviction, serve with excellence, and build with eternity in mind.
So until next time, keep showing up, keep stewarding well, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's obedience in motion.